lovers, and welcome. I want to start off by saying I am so blessed to be in a position to suggest tips and tools and even products that can help you lead a tantric life of liberation and expansion. And one of my absolute favorite places to purchase spiritual and sexy items is Wands. Wands.com, spelled Wands. Wands sells, you guessed it, crystal pleasure wands, along with so much more, including yoni eggs, free bleed blankets, other amazing products for yoni steaming. I've been using these products and products similar to them for the better part of a decade, and they have been incredible allies in my journey of sexual healing and expanding my orgasmic potential. And I'm so grateful to be friends with the owner, Courtney. She's amazing. She has so generously provided us all with a discount code for 15% off, and that code is Leola. Leola. You can use it on their website, www.wands.com. Again, the code is Leola, Leola, for 15% off. I'll also make sure that this is linked in the show notes. So thank you for listening, and you're welcome for the inevitable pleasure and healing that is coming your way with these products. Now, let's get into the episode. Welcome to Talk Tantra to Me. It is such an honor to be holding space for this divine knowledge to make its way into your ears and lifestyle. Today we're doing another fun, flowy episode, but this one also has a bit of structure because we're talking about the divine masculine a bit as well. This month in the Higher Love Club, which is the online membership community of Talk Tantra to Me, we're talking about the divine masculine in that community this month. So, and it just kind of naturally, organically flows with some of the things that are going on in my life. And as usual, the life updates are there with the intention of infusing some tantric wisdom into day to day, because so much of Tantra feels, I think, inaccessible to us or a little bit esoteric. And this is a playful perspective, y'all. That's why we're here. We're here to get the real deal juiciness of what it means to live a tantric lifestyle in the modern day by applying these ancient wisdoms. So I sat down to record this episode, and I was like, at the last second, oh my God, I have the perfect shirt for this episode. I have the perfect shirt. If you're not watching the video, this shirt says "Daddy is a state of mind." I'm really excited about it. I've actually had it for quite a while, and my relationship to this phrase has changed a bit over time. But yeah, that's really what the divine masculine is about. It's about when and how to infuse the masculine archetypes, especially the daddy energy, because I think that daddy energy is so trendy right now. But yeah, daddy is a state of mind. This is a concept that I feel very, very comfortable with. I'm actually a Capricorn sun, and if you're not aware, Capricorn is kind of like the daddy of the zodiac, and Cancer is the mommy of the zodiac. And funny enough, my moon is in Cancer, so I'm a Capricorn sun, Cancer moon, Pisces rising. So I've got a good little balance of mommy and daddy within me, which feels really good when I think about it, because Tantra, some of the lineages of Tantra focus on this concept of, Shakti and Shiva, divine feminine, divine masculine, inner feminine, and maturing those two polarities within us, acknowledging that both of these energies are within all of us, and maturing those energies, and that can be a route to expanded states of being and enlightenment, if you will. So my relationship to the divine masculine has been always not always, but for the most part, very, very strong. And there's been a lot of healing that I've had to do around the masculine in men. And I'm sure a lot of people really resonate with this. I think that in general, men are getting a lot of heat right now for the state of the world, whether that's deserved or not. And I definitely used to be one of those that, well, first, like growing up, I revered men, but I also resented them at the same time. And I also resented being a woman. Like I loved being a girl, but I also just saw how men were treated and the positions that men were put into, and also the fact that many masculine traits tended to be more vilified and celebrated. And so I almost just like really tried to be a man. Like I was like, I can do anything that men can do, and I want to do everything that men can do, and I want to be treated like a man, and I want to be respected like a man. And so I really took on more masculine traits of, consistency and like high production and just being a go-getter and an overachiever. And I was rewarded for that. I was rewarded for that very, very well. And it didn't necessarily serve me holistically, but that's what I did. And in retrospect, I think that that was very healthy, but I think that it's also important to just acknowledge that, we talked about feminine a little bit last month, and if you're struggling to drop into your feminine, it's normal because we've been trained, many of us from a young age, that we're going to get the praise and we're going to get the attention and we're going to get, the financial rewards by being in our more masculine energy. And I think that we've also learned as women that, relying on men can be dangerous, and it has been dangerous. And that's not because men are inherently bad or masculine energy is inherently bad. It's because the masculine gets to mature, and the masculine gets to mature within all of us, because we all have an inner masculine and an inner feminine that, we want to come into balance. So yeah, I had that kind of period in my like growing up ages into my early 20s. And then as I entered my 20s, I went on a little bit more of a divine feminine kick, which felt really good and felt very natural. And I always still had that masculine sort of like hustler, get things done energy. But that really kicked in more when I started my business. And around that time was when I dove more into the lineages of Tantra that are like teaching more of the feminine and the masculine and the polarity and the balance of them all. And it was really powerful for me. I started to see that even though I like really brought out my divine feminine and I felt like this goddess energy, that my inner masculine was still kind of like this average 25-year-old dude that's like wanting to climb the corporate ladder and make a bunch of money and make a name for himself. And like, it's not that those things are wrong and bad, but I realized that so much of my action was based on that outcome. It was based on a more capitalistic intention, which also I don't think is inherently bad, but it wasn't really like serving me, nor was it serving my community fully. And I also, at that time, I was working mainly just one-on-one with people. That was like the foundation of my business in the beginning. And I felt this when I started to work with Divine Masculine, and I did various things. I did a lot of like tantric study. I also did like a tantric like training that was more, it's funny because like they were like, we're very Shakti, and like in reality it was like a very masculine program. They were very structured, like we got up at 5 a.m. to meditate. It was very masculine in nature. And I also did San Pedro, which is a more masculine, San Pedro, like the active ingredient in San Pedro is mescaline, which sounds suspiciously like the word masculine. But I had a San Pedro ceremony, and in that, and then also in a couple of other experiences, I just started to get these downloads. One of which I'm actually going to be sharing. I did a particular practice around calling in the divine masculine as I am today versus calling in my like higher divine masculine. I'm going to be sharing that practice in the Higher Love Club this month, which I'm very excited about. Because it was in that meditation that I actually started to see that what my masculine really wanted to do was create community. He really wanted to be a leader of groups. He wanted to create a movement. And that was beyond like what I had been doing up until then. As I mentioned, I was mostly working one-on-one with people. And after I did that practice where, you know, I connected to my inner divine, my inner masculine of the time, which was again, that more like 25-year-old dude that's just like, let's make money and get cool titles. I saw him, and then I connected to my higher masculine, my divine masculine. And that version was like creating structures for people to come together in, almost like this like carpenter Jesus energy. So yeah, I was like, oh shit, okay. And like not long after that, I actually began hosting my first events in LA. It was very fun. Remember the very first one I ever did, I think was like a root chakra art therapy workshop. It was really sweet. So yeah, that was kind of like the beginning of me beginning to mature that masculine, my inner masculine. And I'm like super stoked today to say that my inner masculine that I'm currently wearing is very similar to the vision that I had, you know, 5 or 6 years ago when I first started really working on my relationship to my inner masculine and maturing that part of me and really stepping into like that inner daddy that's here to corral the cats and make change and but also do it from like a really compassionate, nurturing space. So daddy is a state of mind. That's what it means to me to connect to my divine masculine, is to be that like that compassionate leader, if you will. So that's really what I want to talk about today. And I've already been talking about it. But connecting to the divine masculine has been so powerful for me. And I feel like I'm in this new chapter where I'm connecting to him in a different way. One thing that I've been doing a lot of is CrossFit. I think I talked about this maybe on some past episodes, but a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, I don't remember, I had this really beautiful experience where, if you're not familiar with CrossFit, it's like high intensity workout. And so you're pushing your body to the limit. And never in my life have I pushed my body like this. Never in my life have I like worked out so hard that I need to just like lay in bed for like 2 hours afterwards to just like down regulate. And it's really cool because I feel like past versions of me, like it's the perfect time for me to be exploring CrossFit, because I've always been like a more I've always been a more, what's the word? Like my nervous system has always been a little bit overactive, or like a little bit, like I haven't really needed like, I'm always like, I could turn down the intensity. Like if there's any way or shape or form that I can like tone it down, I'm going to do that. So I've been like the girly that's like, I want to go for walks and I want to like do yoga and maybe like dance and move my body. But interestingly, like that was needed when my inner masculine was actually like already super active and my nervous system was very active. And now that things are more in balance, there's actually this invitation for me to explore the more intense elements of the inner masculine, including like the warrior energy. And that's what CrossFit really does for me, is it like brings out my inner warrior or warrioress. And it's new, like it's a new archetype. And it's also really interesting because historically I've really struggled with the warrior archetype in men. And I feel like a lot of us do, because the inner warrior is intense and he is aggressive and he is like balls to the wall, like, you know, and unfortunately it's like that energy in the masculine, not that energy in its divine form, but like the shadow of the warrior is what has created a lot of destruction and pain in our world. Like having that like aggressive masculine energy that isn't coming from like a holistic place or isn't coming from a well-heeled place. It's like that warrior energy that has, just created a lot of harm for a lot of us. But ironically, you know, now more than ever, we actually need that warrior energy. We need men that are in their like enlightened warrior to stand up for those that, how do I put this? To stand up for those that are impoverished or those that don't have all of the information. Like, there are so many warriors that we see today on social media and otherwise that are like calling shit out, you know, like, not to get too political, but you know, during COVID, there were lots of warriors that were like, hey, this is not right. This is like this COVID was created in a lab. Like, they were the whistleblowers, right? And that's like another way to be in the warrior energy. And like now, years later, we come to find out that, you know, everyone at that time, if you were saying things like that, then you were a conspiracy theorist and therefore were not deserving of respect, and were not worthy of being listened to. And like, honestly, like those people, those warriors were like beat down, like blocked on Instagram, like people were threatening to like kill these people, when in reality, like they were like, I am willing to like shout from the rooftops to like for a mission that I believe in. And I'm willing to risk my life for that. I'm willing to risk my reputation. Like, the reputation of a man is one of his most valuable assets, if not his most valuable asset. And like to have that torn down, or to say like, I am willing to have my reputation tarnished for something that I believe in, is a really, really powerful energy. And at the same time, again, there's still shadow warrior energy out in the world. Like, we've got the kids that are like shooting up schools and like bombing public places. Like, that's another example of the warrior energy that's not in balance. And so what I've been seeing a lot is women especially pushing men into the more softer feminine expression, which I think is also important, and it has its place, but that's not exactly what the world needs. The world doesn't need less masculine men. The world needs more mature masculine men and more mature inner masculines within us women as well. So I had this really beautiful moment at CrossFit, to bring this full circle, where we did this really hard workout, and I saw this man, like he like literally like after the workout, like he worked out so hard that he just like collapsed on the floor. And he's just laying there like, oh, and I was like, that man just went to war. That man went to war for his body, for his health, for his family. Like, he is doing it. He is like stepping into his masculine. And I had this overwhelming urge to go over to him and like put my hand on his heart and like start doing like priestess work on this man in the CrossFit class. I was like, I want to like touch him and bring him into his heart and like really like, and if you're not aware, I've talked about this on the podcast a few times. I've talked about this in relationship to Pleasure Priestess, which is my year-long initiation for women. But one of the like roles of priestesses in the ancient times was to receive men as they came back from war. So they wouldn't necessarily go straight home to their families. The men, the warriors, would come to the temples to meet with the priestess first. And the priestess would, in some cases, expand her energetic field to encompass and alchemize the wounds that the warrior carries back with him. You know, we see today, like so many of our warriors or our servicemen have PTSD and are really struggling with the return after war. Like, they're really struggling to reintegrate into their family lives. And it's really shitty because a lot of these men end up, you know, losing their jobs and getting divorced and really like taking a tumble in their life. And it's not because they're bad or wrong. It's not because they're ruined from war. It's that they don't have this like softness and gratitude and reverence and love and support and pleasure to be met by, because oftentimes, you know, they come back to their families or they come back alone And the woman that's in their life is like also in the warrior energy, off at her job, or, you know, like she knows that she's going to be rewarded for being in her unhealed masculine energy as well, because that's the world that we live in. And then it's just like, you can't win. So anyways, I see this guy in CrossFit and I'm like, oh, I want to like honor you and like love you and respect you and support you for like what you did. And I actually, like, after the class, I told Andrew this, like, we went to lunch and he was cackling. He's like, oh, you want to do some like shamanic priestess? Like, you want to like, I was like, that there's a real, like, there could be a real market for that. Like, you go in, you do a super intense workout, you connect to your inner warrior energy, and then a bunch of women come and like love on you. And we actually do a version of this at the Tantra Love Retreat. Where like one of the days at the Tantra Love Retreat, which by the way happens a couple times a year, all the information's on my website, but you at the Tantra Love Retreat, one of the days we split up the women and we split up the men, and the men do this like really intense experience. I don't want to give anything away, but it's like, it's a beautiful, intense experience that connects them to their divine masculine and to their inner warrior energy. While that's happening, the women are connecting to their priestess powers. They're connecting to the parts of the feminine that they've been told aren't safe, basically. So they're connecting to their intuition, their inner witchy wise woman, and also their sensuality and their gift of like femininity and beauty and touch. And then we bring them back together and we have this like gorgeous exercise. I can't even describe it. Even if I described it to you guys, it would be like, it wouldn't do it justice. Like, you just have to come and experience it. But this is the point in the retreat where everyone is crying. And I mean this in like a really beautiful way, like crying because like the women see like everything that men like are doing to like step to be in service of the feminine in a way, especially these men that are like really consciously healing their masculine energy and like stepping into a more holistic version of themselves. So the women are seeing that, and then the men are like, oh my God, like, thank you. Like, I'm finally being like respected and loved and like worshipped in a way for all that I'm doing and like the parts of me that are good, and knowing like, yes, I'm gonna fuck up and I'm gonna not do it perfectly every time, but I still deserve love. I still deserve respect. Hello, lovers. Please bear with me for a brief interruption with a vulnerable share and offer from my heart. So when I first began my journey with spiritual intimacy and sacred sexuality, all I could afford were books and free podcasts. I was just out of college in my early 20s and honestly very, very broke. And I'm so grateful for all the complimentary, kind words and affordable wisdom that have gotten me where I am today. Price shouldn't deter you from healing. It shouldn't deter you from living the life you love or from reclaiming the most powerful energy in your body. It's my belief that time and commitment are also very powerful investments, especially when you're just dipping your toes in the water. You'll know when it's time to make the bigger cash investments in your journey, but let's begin together today with free love from my heart to yours. As you've already discovered, this podcast is free and it includes so much life-changing wisdom, but I'd also love to guide you to some free offers that are on my website, including a downloadable sexual shadow work workbook and a pleasure positive meditation. Both of these resources are amazing places to start in integrating the tantric principles of expansion and liberation into your life. And you can access these at www.talktantratome.com/free or find a direct link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the episode. As I've said, men today are getting they're being blamed for a lot. And there's like a lot of, intense energy going their way. And I get it. Like, I get the why. I get where we are in society and how overwhelming the immature masculine has impacted individuals. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of really I shouldn't say this because every day there's more and more men that are stepping into maturity, that are stepping into their inner king energy and are serving as role models. But like a lot of us didn't have super amazing male role models. My father was an amazing businessman. He was an amazing leader, and he really inspired that to come forth in me. And there were, pieces of his being that were dangerous and toxic and really damaging. And yeah, so I know for myself, like I can't think of like a single man that I knew of growing up that I felt really embodied the divine masculine. But I also feel really grateful to be in the position that I am today, where I'm like, I know so many men that are really in that inner king energy, or are at the very least working on themselves. Like when I first started my business, my primary clientele were men. And seeing and even today, still to this day, like half of the people that I work with are men. It was really beautiful. On the last month, we were talking about the divine feminine and the higher love club. And on that call, there were actually more men on that call than women. And I'm like, oh my God, like the men are out there. I hear so many women that are so frustrated because they feel like there aren't enough good men out there, and like women are working at a faster pace and working on themselves more than men. And I'm like, I really don't have evidence for that in my experience. I see men really working hard on themselves and really trying, and I also see them fucking up, and I see them like making mistakes. And you know what? Like that's a part of the process. I think that what I would say, like for women and men right now, is that there's a lot of room for grace in this process of maturing the inner masculine, because there's not a lot of role models out there that are really embodying this. So there is this little bit of trial and error. And there's also this piece where, the inner warrior comes online, and it's shocking to the feminine system at first, even though deep down we know that that's what we need. We need the warrior, but it's like, ooh, that toughness, that aggressiveness is like shocking. And it's a way that we stay in our trauma, because oftentimes when those more intense, or like, there's a difference between being a leader and being a controlling leader. When we see a man in our life in that more controlling energy, or that more aggressive warrior energy, we've all experienced that. Let me backtrack. We've all experienced the more controlling masculine, the masculine that's in his aggressiveness, that's in his vindictiveness, that is manipulative in a way that is like creating pain and discomfort for people, or even potentially death. So we've all witnessed that. And so immediately when we see someone step into their masculine leader or their masculine warrior, there might be a tone within us that's afraid, because we've seen what that energy can do when it is not mature. We've seen what it can do when it's in its shadow. And like the things that helped us survive, aka avoiding the warrior, avoiding that inner leader, those things that helped us survive are not the same things that are going to help us thrive. So as a society and as individuals, we really need to make peace with the inner king and the inner warrior, and from a place of inviting in that mature side, so that we can, again, thrive. So that's my prayer. That's my prayer for men. That's my prayer for women. That's my prayer for society. Let's, as individuals holistically, let's really work on maturing those masculine pieces within us. And then I think, as men, if you're a man and you're listening to this, or you identify with the more masculine energy, my prayer for you is to lean into those parts and to get curious, and to find maybe a masculine mentor, to join a men's group, to maybe do like a men's experience. There's lots of like men's workplaces out there, and I share about some of them in the Higher Love Club as well. But men used to have like more initiatory rituals. They, like in tribal settings, they would go off and do a vision quest where they were left out in the wilderness for days to learn how to survive, and that marked them becoming a man. Or maybe they had a plant medicine journey of sorts. There are various different rituals that would invite the boy into the man. And so, thinking about what could that look like as a man. And then my prayer for women is to, again, meet men with gratitude and respect and grace, giving them permission to mess up sometimes. Like, men are going to respond so much better to that rather than your nagging or your punishing energy. Like, that doesn't inspire him to step into his king, that nagging and that punishing energy. That inspires him to like leave you or to like create spaciousness. So that's my prayer for the women. I feel like we're coming to a good close, but I also feel like there's something that I'm missing that I wanted to share. Oh, let's talk about how working on the divine masculine has impacted me. So specifically, one thing that I've been working on lately is this book. If I were to wait to work on the book until I felt totally juicy and alive and excited, this book wouldn't have ever been written, let alone edited and published. Writing a book is an insanely huge initiation, and it really takes a very good mix of masculine and feminine to do it, and to do it well. I actually, last year, I intentionally decided to join a more masculine oriented container that was really focused on consistency and urgency and taking action. And it was super supportive and helpful for me in writing the book. In the container, we had like a 3-month period where we were meant to set a goal basically, and like have that goal completed by the end of the 3 months. So I decided to have my book written within that time. And it was amazing, but it's because I did it. Like, it was crazy. I remember like I would sit down to write the book and I would be like, I do not want to do this. I do not feel inspired. I'm not in the mood. Like, this is hard. Like, I had every excuse in the book, and I really had to connect to my inner masculine energy to get it done and to make it happen. And I'm so grateful that I did, and that I leaned into that, because at the end, like, I finally like finished it, and then I read through it and I was like, oh shit, like this could actually change lives. And that's what the masculine is about. It's about making impact and creating a legacy. And that's like so what this book is about. And I will say that it has been over a year since I finished writing the book, because I will also say that if you're ever thinking about writing a book, which I am intending to open up some mentorship, if anyone's curious about writing a book and going through the whole process, I'd love to mentor you and help you walk the steps that I walked. But it's quite a process. Writing the book is like, you think like, oh, I wrote the book and now I just like put it out there in the world. It's going to be easy. It's going to be great. No, writing the book is like one initiation, and then editing the book is a whole other process. Like, I sat down with my friend the other day, who's an awesome man, Gabriel. He's my friend Sophia's husband. And he was like, how many times do you think you edited this book? And we sat down and like talked about it, and I ended up coming to like, it was like at least 11 times, which means that I read this book at least 11 times, and then had like, I think there was like 8 people that also read the book, or 9 maybe. Like, so much time and energy between like so many different individuals went into the editing process. Like, I would say the editing process might have even been harder than like the writing process. So that's been a thing. I finished that like in the early parts of this year, and now we're in the publishing journey. And it's so interesting because the publishing journey, it feels so vulnerable. It feels so intense. Like, I'm reading through this book and like, you know, it went through this whole editing process, and then I'm like, there's still things that I would change. There's still things that I would change. I want to add. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I've had all these new experiences and like learned so much more since a year ago. And like, now I want to add all these new things. And I'm like, I have to really like engage my inner masculine and reel myself in and say, there will be other books or content of sorts. Let this book be this book, and let's just get it out. It's never going to be perfect. let's take action, let's make it happen. And that's another moment of like, all right, like taming that inner feminine, like who, like my inner feminine is like, this isn't good enough, and like, nah, let's change this. And like, it's like wanting to nag, and it's like, babe, this is what I'm saying to my inner masculine, or my inner feminine. My inner masculine to my inner feminine says, babe, it's good. Take a deep breath. It's so good. You've done such a good job. This wisdom is gorgeous. It's going to change the world. Thank you so much. Hand the reins to me. I'm going to get this out there. I'm going to get it in front of so many people, and you're going to see. You're going to see how powerful your wisdom is. And then we'll do it again. Do it again. If you want to do it again, we'll do it again. Oh, he's so sweet. I love my inner masculine. Big time. Which brings me into the inner union piece, like having that internal dialogue between your feminine and masculine. And we're going to be exploring inner union next month in the Higher Love Club. So this month, last month was divine feminine. This month is divine masculine. Next month is inner union. If you're interested in joining the Higher Love Club, it is my most accessible offering. It's super affordable, and every month inside the Higher Love Club is kind of like a different mini course. As soon as you join, you also get access to like over 30 hours of other tantric educational content, workbooks, video lessons, master classes, suggested reading. It's an incredible resource, so check that out. But yeah, I'm excited to announce, I think, don't like get at me if I end up changing this, but I am going to publish this episode as is. But she's coming out, the book is coming out July 8th. July 8th. 8's my lucky number. Feels like a really good day. It's a Monday. I'm nervous and excited and scared, and yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot. It's so much. I'm self-publishing, which I did because there were a couple of reasons that I went with self-publishing. Maybe I'll save that for another episode, but it's a lot. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of vulnerability. It's like, I shared this on my story yesterday that one of my friends, Madeline Moon, like I asked her to like, you know, be one of the people that gives testimonials for the book. She's amazing. She's also been on this podcast. She's awesome. She's a great teacher of masculine and feminine and polarity. She was on the podcast like years and years ago, actually, when I was like still living in LA, and she still lived in LA. So very long time ago. But she read it, and she came back to me and was like, babe, this is so honest. Like, oh my God, like I can't believe these stories. Like, and I was like, I went into this immediate fear and contraction. I was like, oh my God, it is really honest. Oh my God, I am like talking like in a book that's going to be published in print and like on coffee book table. Like I talk about like holding a cock and like my like the time that I cheated and like so many things. It's like, oh my God, like this could ruin me in a way, but also like coming from a place of like, okay, like I gotta be real. Like this is the story. This is like vulnerable. This is my truth. And like, this is what I learned. Like I'm a human and I've fucked up. And part of that fucking up has been my learning process. And like, what I can say is like in every moment that like I made a mistake, I learned from it and I came out stronger. And also there are a lot of things in the book that like, if my family were to read it, oh, it'd be so like, not because it's something that I did that's bad, but something that people might think is bad, like doing tantric body work and like touching genitals that aren't mine or my lover's and being paid to do that. Like that's kind of edgy, you know? So yeah, it's been a process. It's been a process, but I'm really excited. It would mean the world to me if you're listening, if you could put a little alarm on your phone to buy the book on July 8th. I'm really doing what I can to make this a bestseller because I see the impact of what this book can create in the world. You know, even in the first chapter, I address how the book is called Sacred Sex Ed, if you're not familiar. So it's the sex education that you didn't have, that we all desperately need, that's focused on pleasure and empowerment and education and conscious communication and radical honesty, but also talking about fun things like sex magic and conscious kink. It's a really good like overview of my experience in this world of shamanic sexuality and more tantric, neo-tantra. But where was I going with this? Oh yeah. It's my belief that this type of sex education is the type of sex education that eliminates sexual violence, or at the very least drastically reduces it. Because when you start to do your sexual shadow work, you, like, as someone that could potentially be a perpetrator, when you do your sexual shadow work, you're more aware of those unconscious pulls and behaviors that could be damaging to someone else. And you have, like, you know, both as someone that, you know, would maybe be a perpetrator or could potentially be a victim, like having the tools of conscious communication to get really clear on people's intentions and vet potential lovers. It's just really powerful. So it would mean the world to me if you bought it immediately, because that helps boost it in like the Amazon algorithm, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word for Amazon, but the more people that like buy it, that increases the likelihood of it becoming a bestseller. And then once it's a bestseller, Amazon's like, let's push this book. And I'm like, yes, give people this knowledge. The world needs it. The world's ready for it. It's time. So that'll be coming out. Let me know your thoughts. Leave a review. Also, leave a review on this podcast if you feel called. That would mean the world to me, because that also helps the algorithm of the podcast. So, I think that's it. Yeah, I think that we're at a good place. So, again, if you want to dive more deeply into divine masculine and begin healing your divine masculine, I'd love to see you in the Higher Love Club. Join me there. The link is in the show notes. I also mentioned a little bit about the Pleasure Priestess. We have another Pleasure Priestess round coming up in the fall. I just decided to go ahead. I wasn't sure if I was going to open enrollment for the Pleasure Priestess again at all, or if I was going to wait a year. And I just decided, like, I went through like we're about a month and a half into the first cohort, and like had an amazing call this week on the Pleasure Priestess where we did a tantric ritual together on ourselves, and then they're asked to go bring that tantra ritual to someone else. And it was just so juicy and fun that I was like, I want to do this again in 6 months. I want to bring more women into this. So that one's just for women. Higher Love Club is for everyone. Tantra Love Retreat, I also mentioned, would love to see you there. The next one's in September in Austin, and then we have another one in March of next year. You can apply for either one of them now. I do have some spots opening for one-to-one coaching as well if you'd like some support with business, specifically integrating the masculine and feminine in business. I'm really excited because I couldn't have built a multi-six-figure business without having that balance of my masculine and feminine. And I'm in this really good phase of life right now where things are really good and in balance. I'm generally only doing 1 day of calls a week. This was like my inner masculine coming in. Like about midway through last year, I started to realize like it's not working for me to have like one or two calls 3 days a week or 4 days a week. I need to like be more efficient and with my time, with my work, and have more dedicated times like for rest and more dedicated times for calls. And especially because I do a lot of work on the weekends, mainly because I do events on the weekends, I do retreats on the weekends. So it's like a lot of the time, like I can't get away from like working on the weekends, which is fine. Like I love doing the retreats and the events, but work is work. It's still like a lot of energy that I'm like putting forth to lead. So if I'm working on the weekends and then I've got calls Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, like it's like, where is my weekend? So I decided like I get to work smarter, not harder. And my masculine stepped forth and was like, let's do this. Let's try to have calls only 1 day a week. And I'm doing really well with that. Like it's working really well. I'm getting it all into 1 day. Tomorrow is my call day. I'm recording on a Wednesday. Tomorrow I'm doing like a whole day of calls, but it's like, it's all boxed and I'm in the zone. Like I have my call day and I like take my supplements and my little tinctures and I'm like, okay, let's get into this. And then every other day of the week that I'm not doing an event or something, I get to wake up and be like, okay, do I want to like start work at 10 or do I want to start work at 2? And just like be in flow with it. It's so nice. So I'd love to support you one-on-one with your business to create a structure that is the most juicy and expansive for you and also makes impact and income. So yeah, that's all the new things. Life is really good right now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, this is a really yummy, good chapter of life, which is such a contrast to how I was feeling like 3 or 4 months ago. Actually, things were pretty good even then, but also had some initiations, which I'll be sharing a little bit more about here soon. Most of them had to do with my marriage. Spoiler alert, we had a little marriage rebrand, which I've talked about already. But Andrew today, I was like, I'm gonna record a podcast today. And he's like, oh, do you want me to come on too? And I was like, yes, I do. I do want you to come on and I love how excited you are about this, but I gotta do a solo episode first, baby. So I'm really excited to have him on because he's just really evolving and expanding and I'm so proud. All right, so I suppose that's it. Sending you much love. Have a sexy and spiritual day, and we'll catch you next week or next time on Talk Tantra to Me. Let's just do that again. Have a sexy and spiritual day, and I'll catch you next time on Talk Tantra to Me. Ta-ta.
Oops, just kidding. Still here. I have one last thing for y'all. I want to say that the internet is a really, really special place. It's why we're all here right now. And many of us, including me, wouldn't have discovered Tantra or sacred sexuality if it weren't for this nifty invention of the 20th century. And almost none of you would have found my work and my vision without it. I love the internet, and I deeply desire to expand beyond it, to experience more real life love, community, and connection. So I invite you to check out upcoming Tantra events at www.talktantratome.com/events or click the link in the show notes. I can't wait to give you a big squeeze in real life. Okay, now that's it. Ta-ta for real. Ta-ta.